When Apocalypse Now arrived in 1979, it didn't feel like a war movie. It felt like a descent into madness, because it literally was one. Director Francis Ford Coppola mortgaged his house, lost his lead actor to a heart attack, and watched his film spiral into chaos that mirrored the war it depicted. Martin Sheen broke down on camera. Marlon Brando arrived unprepared and overweight. The Philippine military lent helicopters that kept disappearing mid-scene to fight actual insurgents. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in Apocalypse Now. Number 20. The opening scene is a mental breakdown. Captain Willard's hotel room meltdown is fragmented, looping, and disorienting. Francis Ford Coppola wanted audiences inside Willard's damaged mind before the mission begins. Martin Sheen was actually drunk during filming. Coppola encouraged him to stop performing and start unraveling. Sheen punched a mirror and cut his hand open. The blood is real. Coppola kept the cameras rolling. Cinematographer Vittorio Storaro used handheld cameras and overlapping exposures to create visual instability. The scene doesn't introduce a character. It introduces a condition. Willard is already broken when the film starts. Jim Morrison's The End plays throughout, a nearly 12-minute epic that The Doors originally recorded in 1967. The band granted permission for the song's use after Morrison's death in 1971. Number 19. The ceiling fan is the first war image. The spinning blades above Willard's bed dissolve seamlessly into helicopter rotors. Willard never mentally leaves Vietnam. Editor Walter Murch constructed the opening sequence to function as a visual representation of post-traumatic stress. The fan becomes, the helicopter becomes, the memory becomes the present. Time collapses. The visual transition happens so smoothly that audiences don't consciously register the shift from object to machine. It's subliminal, working beneath awareness the way trauma works beneath consciousness. The dissolve technique required precise timing and multiple exposures to achieve the hypnotic effect. The ceiling fan is the film's first statement about trauma. War doesn't end when soldiers leave the battlefield. Murch, who later won Academy Awards for The English Patient, pioneered sound editing techniques on Apocalypse Now that revolutionized cinema. Number 18. Willard is introduced already dead. He's drunk, isolated, and disconnected from civilian life. The mission doesn't break him because there's nothing left to break. Willard's narration makes this explicit. He talks about waiting for a mission, needing to get back into the jungle. Home is the prison. War is freedom. The hotel room becomes a cage where Willard paces like a captive animal, unable to function in the civilian world he's supposed to protect. When the mission briefing finally arrives, it's not an interruption of his life, but a resurrection. Martin Sheen understood Willard as a man who had stopped existing outside of combat. The journey upriver isn't about transformation. It's about recognition. Sheen later said that playing Willard helped him process his own relationship with alcohol, which nearly killed him during production. Number 17. The briefing scene is shot like an interrogation. The generals sit in shadow, sweat dripping, voices low. There's no heroism in the room. Coppola and Storaro used high contrast lighting that left the generals' faces half hidden in darkness. The briefing room was deliberately kept hot to make the actors sweat naturally. The discomfort is visible on every face, creating an atmosphere of guilt and complicity. Even the men giving orders look like they're confessing to something. The generals aren't ordering a mission, they're trying to bury a problem. They speak in euphemisms, never directly saying Willard is being sent to commit murder. The mission isn't official, it's deniable. G.D. Spradlin, who played General Corman, was a lawyer before becoming an actor and brought that background to his chillingly bureaucratic performance. Number 16. Kurtz is spoken about like a myth. Before he appears, Kurtz exists only through rumors, reports, and fear. Every description contradicts the last. Some call him brilliant, others insane, and the military can't decide if he's a hero or a monster. By the time Willard reaches the compound, Kurtz has become larger than any single man could be. Coppola withheld Marlon Brando's appearance until the final third deliberately. He wanted Kurtz to grow in the audience's imagination. According to Hearts of Darkness, Coppola didn't even have an ending written when Brando arrived on set. Kurtz becomes a legend long before he's a man. Brando was paid $3 million for 3 weeks of work, making him one of the highest paid actors per day in film history at that time. Number 15. The river always moves one direction. The journey upriver mirrors Willard's descent into chaos. Every mile strips away military logic and discipline. Coppola used the river to create visual progression. Early scenes are brightly lit. As the boat moves deeper into Cambodia, the light drains away. The jungle grows denser, the fog thicker, and the world outside the boat becomes increasingly unrecognizable. What begins as a military operation gradually transforms into something primal and ritualistic. By the final stretch, the boat isn't navigating a river anymore. It's crossing into another realm entirely. Production designer Dean Tavoularis designed each location to feel progressively more surreal and disconnected from military order. The river is psychology made man-made landscape. The production filmed on the Pagsanjan River in the Philippines, which was also used decades later for location shoots in multiple Vietnam War documentaries. Number 14, the USO show is a controlled riot. The Playboy Bunny scene isn't comic relief. It's a pressure cooker of repression, desire, and violence. Discipline collapses in seconds. The soldiers surge forward, breaking through barriers, turning spectacle into chaos. Coppola staged the scene as commentary on the absurdity of maintaining American culture in a war zone. The collision of intimacy and violence becomes grotesque. The show ends in riot. The women flee by helicopter. The scene reveals what happens when the military tries to package normalcy for men who have stopped being normal. The entire performance is meant to remind soldiers of home, but instead it exposes how far they've traveled from anything resembling civilization. Coppola cast actual Playboy Playmates of the Year, including Colleen Camp, who later appeared in Die Hard with a vengeance. Number 13, Willard stops narrating near Kurtz. His internal voice fades as Kurtz takes over. Thought gives way to observation. Identity begins to dissolve. As Willard enters Kurtz's compound, the narration becomes sparse, fragmented, and eventually disappears. The confident, analytical voice that guided the journey upriver falters and goes silent in Kurtz's presence. Willard loses the ability to process what he's witnessing through language or logic. The internal monologue that defined his character simply ceases to exist. Coppola structured this silence deliberately. Willard stops explaining because he stops understanding. The silence marks a transfer of authority. Willard came to judge Kurtz. Instead, Kurtz judges him. Michael Herr, author of Dispatches and one of the most acclaimed Vietnam War correspondents, wrote all of Willard's voiceover narration. Number 12, Ride of the Valkyries is psychological warfare. The music is blasted from helicopter-mounted loudspeakers to break civilians before the attack begins. Sound becomes a weapon. Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore uses Wagner's opera to terrorize a Vietnamese village. Coppola drew inspiration from real psychological operations used during the Vietnam War. Sound designer Walter Murch layered helicopter rotors, explosions, gunfire, and orchestral music into a coherent sonic assault. The result is overwhelming, a sensory attack that disorients both the village below and the audience watching. Wagner's triumphant composition becomes inseparable from the violence it accompanies, turning art into an instrument of terror. Kilgore isn't just attacking the village, he's performing dominance. Robert Duvall improvised the famous line,
"I love the smell of napalm in the morning,"
which became one of the most quoted movie lines in American film history. Number 11, every crew death feels accidental. No heroic sacrifices, no speeches, just chaos, confusion, and sudden loss. Clean is killed by gunfire from the jungle. Chief is impaled by a spear during a calm river passage. Coppola refused to give the deaths cinematic weight. There are no slow motion sequences, no swelling music, no final words. The deaths happen fast and without dignity. One moment a character is alive and talking, the next they're gone, their body just another piece of cargo on the boat. The surviving crew members barely have time to process the loss before the mission continues. Death in Apocalypse Now doesn't pause for grief or reflection. Each death feels like an interruption rather than a climax. Lawrence Fishburne, who played Clean, was only 14 years old during filming and lied about his age to get the role. Number 10, the bridge scene has no command. The Do Lung Bridge exists without leadership, without strategy, without purpose. Soldiers fight without knowing why. Willard arrives searching for a commanding officer and finds only chaos. No one knows who's in charge. The bridge is destroyed every night and rebuilt every morning in an endless, pointless cycle. The futility is absolute, a perfect microcosm of the war itself. Soldiers die defending ground that has no value, following orders that don't exist. One soldier asks Willard who's in command. Willard has no answer. The bridge is war without reason. The scene was inspired by real incidents during the Vietnam War, where American forces would capture strategic positions during the day only to abandon them at night. Number 9, Willard stops asking questions after the deaths. As the crew dies, Willard grows quieter. Curiosity gives way to acceptance. He's becoming what he was sent to kill. After Clean dies, then Chief Willard retreats into silence. He stops trying to lead. The mission becomes the only thing that matters, and everything else falls away. Morality, connection, empathy. Each death strips another layer of humanity until only purpose remains. Martin Sheen played the transformation as a gradual shutdown, a slow erasure of personality. By the time Willard reaches Kurtz, he's no longer questioning orders. He's become a weapon pointed at a target. Sheen suffered a near-fatal heart attack during production, and was so determined to finish the film that he returned to set weeks later against medical advice. Number 8, 8. Kurtz is always framed in shadow. His face is hidden, fragmented, incomplete. You never fully see him because Kurtz is an idea, not just a man. Coppola and Storaro lit Marlon Brando almost exclusively from the side or below, keeping large portions of his face in darkness. Storaro used single-source lighting inspired by Caravaggio's paintings. Brando's shaved head emerges from shadows like a moon, half visible and otherworldly. Every shot withholds as much as it reveals, turning Kurtz into a visual puzzle that can never be fully solved. Kurtz becomes mythic precisely because he's never fully revealed. Brando arrived on set overweight and hadn't read Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, the novella that inspired the film's source material. Number 7. The jungle is always listening. Ambient sounds never fully drop out. Silence is avoided entirely. Walter Murch built a layered soundscape where insects, birds, wind, and distant thunder create constant presence. The jungle breathes. It hums. Every rustle and chirp feels alive, aware, and vaguely threatening. The soundscape creates paranoia, making audiences strain to hear what might be hidden beneath the natural noise. You can never be certain if a sound is harmless wildlife or something watching from the darkness. Even during dialogue scenes, the ambient sound remains dense and enveloping. Coppola wanted audiences to feel surrounded. The jungle isn't just setting, it's a character. Murch recorded environmental sounds on location in the Philippines and then spent months in post-production at American Zoetrope mixing them into the final soundtrack. Number 6. Kurtz quotes poetry to sound human. T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men isn't random. Kurtz clings to language to justify horror. Marlon Brando improvised much of his dialogue, pulling from literature, philosophy, and his own fragmented thoughts. Brando wanted Kurtz to be articulate, educated, and deeply self-aware. The poetry proves Kurtz hasn't descended into mindless savagery. He's not insane. He's concluded that brutality is the only rational response to war. His words are chosen carefully, each literary reference a weapon in his philosophical argument. The recitation of The Hollow Men becomes a defense, a final statement from a man who believes he's seen the truth. Eliot's poem, published in 1925, was written in the aftermath of World War I and shares thematic DNA with Conrad's critique of colonialism. Number 5. The sacrifice scene mirrors the assassination. The ritual killing of a water buffalo and Kurtz's death are cross-cut deliberately. Civilization and savagery become indistinguishable. Coppola intercuts Willard's murder of Kurtz with a ceremonial slaughter performed by the Montagnard tribe. Both acts are ritualistic. Both are brutal. Walter Murch matched the rhythms of the two killings, so they felt like mirror images. Each machete strike against Kurtz is timed to match a blade falling on the buffalo, creating a visual equation between the two deaths. The water buffalo sacrifice was real, performed by local tribesmen as part of an actual ceremony. The American Humane Association was not present during filming, and the scene later prompted stricter regulations regarding animal use in movies. Number 4. Kurtz wants to be judged. He doesn't resist Willard's arrival. He explains himself and waits for execution. Kurtz believes he's already won the argument. Marlon Brando played Kurtz as a man who has thought through every moral question. He's not defensive. He's patient. He talks to Willard like a teacher addressing a slow student. Kurtz knows Willard has been sent to kill him, yet he treats the assassin as an audience for his final lecture. Instead, he uses his remaining time to ensure Willard understands what he's about to do and why it changes nothing. The final confrontation isn't a fight, it's a philosophical surrender. Kurtz orchestrates his own end. Brando's performance method drew from his work with Stella Adler and influenced actors like Robert De Niro, who studied Brando's techniques extensively. Number 3. The horror is not meant to be fear. Kurtz isn't scared at the end, he's acknowledging truth without illusion. The horror is clarity. His final words aren't a scream of terror, they're a recognition of what lies beneath all civilization. Marlon Brando delivered the line in a whisper, not a shout. Brando's voice was recorded so quietly it had to be amplified in post-production. The whisper makes the words more chilling than any scream could be, turning them into a confession rather than a cry for help. Kurtz isn't warning against the horror. He's accepting it as the fundamental nature of existence. The horror isn't out there in the jungle, it's inside. The line is taken directly from Joseph Conrad's 1899 novella Heart of Darkness, where Kurtz's dying words carry the same weight of devastating revelation. Number 2. The journey mirrors a descent. Each river stop grows more chaotic and irrational. Civilization erodes as Willard moves closer to Kurtz. The first stop features a functioning military base. The second shows discipline fraying. The third reveals a combat zone without leadership. The final destination is Kurtz's compound, where all structure has dissolved into ritual. Coppola structured the journey as a literal passage through stages of collapse. By the time Willard reaches Kurtz, he's traveled beyond the reach of civilization entirely. The river doesn't just carry Willard geographically, it carries him through progressively darker psychological territory where reason and order cease to exist. Coppola studied Dante's Inferno while developing the script's structure, modeling the river journey after the descending circles of hell. Number 1, the ending is a ritual, not a victory. Kurtz's death is intercut with ceremonial sacrifice. Leadership transfers through violence. Willard doesn't end madness, he survives it. After killing Kurtz, Willard emerges covered in blood. The tribesmen kneel before him. He has taken Kurtz's place. Coppola shot multiple endings. One showed Willard calling in an airstrike, another showed him accepting leadership. The final version offers ambiguity. Willard walks past the kneeling tribesmen and drifts back downriver. The choice to leave is as uncertain as the choice to stay would have been, neither option offering redemption or escape. The film doesn't offer victory or defeat. It offers continuation. United Artists executives fought Coppola over the ending, demanding a clearer resolution before the film's theatrical release. Apocalypse Now isn't about Vietnam. It's about what happens when power, ideology, and violence collide without restraint. Francis Ford Coppola made a film that became war, that consumed its creators, and that blurred the line between documenting madness and experiencing it. Every hidden detail pulls you deeper into that nightmare. The film endures not because it answers questions, but because it forces you to confront them. Decades after its release, Apocalypse Now remains a mirror held up to civilization itself, reflecting truths we'd rather not see.